Today I want to take a look at Garrison. If you've been watching the last few decks I've made, you'll notice this card featured pretty heavily in them, and it's not often I do a reworked or new card video, a discussion video on it so soon after the change or release. But I think for Garrison, we've got a pretty good idea, and it's a very interesting card, so I want to look at it. So, 11 provisions, location neutral, has resilience. Deploy, spawn and play a base copy of a bronze soldier from your starting deck. So this is usually worth about 5 or so provisions depending on the soldier you play. So then it's got 6 provisions to pay for this resilience order ability. At least that's how I break it down. It's got boost an allied soldier in all its copies by 1 and give them 1 armor. Now the reason this is so interesting is because of just how flexible it is. It is a neutral card. So if we take a look at soldiers, there are a few archetypes that come to mind right off the bat, and we'll take a look through these before we get like a final thoughts on the card, and we'll change over our search to bronze here. Oops, that's not the wrong one. And if you take a look here, this one doesn't count, but if you look at the soldiers, you'll see that there are a couple factions pretty heavily represented. We have Nilfgaard, which has quite a few soldiers, especially after the Imperial Formation rework. So they have quite a few soldiers, and they can spawn and play a bronze copy, or a copy of a bronze from it, with the Garrison, and there's 3 notable cards here, I think. Well, I guess 4. One is you have the access to Elba Armor Cavalry if you want to lock. Second one is if it's a later round, spawning extra Nausicaa Sergeant is worth a ton of value. Third one is Ardfen Crossbow, very strong engine card. It kind of applies to Ardfen Light Crossbow too, but Ardfen Crossbow is really, or Light Cavalry, I'm sorry. Crossbow is the bigger engine card here. And the last one to mention is Illusionist, which has that Illusionist effect where you spawn a copy or whatever. And having more of these is great for the bonded effect. So those are the 4 main choices in Nilfgaard. They obviously all have strengths. The lock's really valuable. Nausicaa Sergeant's huge point slam, good engine, and Illusionist is really helpful by the Garrison because you get the bonded. So there's several options here. The other factions that are really helped are, we'll to Northern Realms here. Northern Realms has a lot of soldiers, but they usually don't play a lot in the same deck, because for Garrison, it's all the copies of the soldier, so it has to be the same soldier for the order effect. We're just talking about the deploy right now, though, but for as far as the deploy, usually you don't play these soldiers here that are not that valuable deploys, right? You got Temerian Drummer's not bad. You've got Blue Stripes, if you're playing a Blue Stripes deck, which I made a video on the other day, if you want to check that out. But yeah, Blue Stripes Commando and Scout are both soldiers. Having another way to spawn extra one of those is really good. And then one is Cintron Royal Guard. So every extra Cintron Royal Guard you get is worth 3 points. So this is really good if you can make extras of it. So it's worth mentioning for those. And the last faction here is going to be, oops, someone by it, Scoia'tael. So Scoia'tael, mainly the dwarves. Dwarves have a lot of soldiers. And the reason we're talking about dwarves instead of the elves is because the dwarves tend to have, again, more benefits with the second effect, which we'll talk about. But really, as far as spawning a soldier, you could run this in an elf deck, but the elves don't really get that much value from spawning extra soldier. Like, there's not that great of deploy effects, so it's not the greatest. But spawning extra dwarf, you have some really good options. You have Mahakam Volunteers, which will summon 2 out of your deck if you don't have a in hand, which is really good. That's the best choice. You also have access to another Dwarf Berserker if you want. You have access to damage from Skirmisher. And you have Mahakam Guard, which is really good point slam if you need it later in the round, which is one of the strengths of Garrison, right? Just so, like, there's also a couple of neutral soldiers here, but we're not really going to talk about those. It's more so about those faction ones. So those are the main factions that can use Garrison. And we'll go back to golds here, which gets us to the second part of the effect and why this card's so good. So for one, you have the flexibility on the deploy, which is really handy. The best example, that's dwarves, right? You can open with a Berserker, you can open with a Volunteers if you got a Berserker out to thin, or you can finish a round with the Guard and boost by like 8 and get a play for 11. So there's a lot of options there, which is really handy. Same thing for Nilfgaard, you can spawn that. Lock, you can make another Illusionist, a lot of choices. So this is really good. And then you get the second effect. So boost an allied soldier by, and all its copies by 1, give them 1 armor. So this is extremely interesting because back in those factions we mentioned, for Nilfgaard, you don't have so much of the copies part, like the effect of the second effect where you boost all the copies. It's not super easy to do. Should have just left this on. But you have slave infantry, so you can make a bunch of slave infantries. You have illusionists, which you usually want to make a few extra copies of, and you have slave drivers, right? And you have Ramon. So you have several ways to make extras, and they'll give them 1 armor. If you're doing it with stuff like crossbow, the 1 armor actually triggers the barricade, which is really nice. You can re-enable barricades that way, so it's very flexible. And then in Scoia'tael, you're going to mainly, can't talk for a second there, mainly be doing it on Dwarf Berserkers or Rowdy Dwarf tokens. You can spawn a bunch of Rowdy Dwarf tokens pretty quickly with the Zoltan's Company and Chariot. You can also, if you can transform Monroe, that's really good. So there's good value there in that order. And Dwarves synergize quite well with armor. So if you're just using it, just say on 3 Dwarf Berserkers, the order is still going to be worth 6 points eventually, because those armors will turn into pings. And then lastly, we have the Northern Realms. Northern Realms doesn't gain so much armor synergy, like we have barricade synergy in Nilfgaard and in Scoia'tael. We don't really have that here. What we have instead is more value from the order, just by nature of having more copies of cards. Especially with Blue Stripes Commandos. You can get like 10 or 12 Blue Stripes Commandos in an ideal game and boost them all by 1. It's a huge value on the order. It's basically, the order is the same for Blue Stripes Commandos as is playing Voimir, right? You boost them all by 1, give them 1 armor. It's the same effect. So it's very nice to have in the deck. Voimir costs 7 provisions. If you'd play Voimir, play Garrison, and that has that resilience order with the extra bonus of paying just 4 provisions to spawn another guy, which is really good. And the other one here is Centurion Royal Guard. Again, you just make a whole bunch of copies and boost them all by 1. So Garrison has a lot of really good uses, and it's very flexible in these decks. Now, does it have drawbacks? Yes, if your stuff's getting controlled and you don't have a lot of copies, Garrison's pretty poor for the order. If you don't have you end up in a short round and you can't make a bunch of cards, the order might just be like 1 or even, just 1 point possibly. So that is something to watch out for, but it has resilience, so you should be able to use that order when you want to. The resilience gives it carryover, which is really good. And this card has a lot of uses. And there is one more card I want to mention here, which is going to be Duum Viandra, as someone pointed out to me in one of my videos the other day. Thank you for doing so. Is that this will actually re-enable the order of a location. So if you're playing a deck that makes a whole bunch of copies, for example, the Blue Stripes Commando deck, you've got like 10, it might be worth running Duum Viandra to reset the Garrison order, and that's boosting by 8 or 10 even again, which is really good. So this is a very cool card with a lot of uses. It does certainly have downsides. Biggest one being if you're not getting value from this order here, it's pretty poor. So say you're stuck in a short round, or say you're getting bled round 2 because you lost round 1, and you play a Bronze Soldier. You're like, okay, whatever, I just play, I don't know, a Nilfgaardian Knight. You just open with this and play Nilfgaardian Knight. And then you've got this order, and maybe you play a second Nilfgaardian Knight, and the order gives 2 points and 2 armor. And that armor won't necessarily do anything in that case, and just paying the entire extra provisions on this over the bronze card's value to give 2 points, which is definitely not worth it. So it's not ridiculous or anything. It's just very good in the situations where your deck wants to play with it. And I think that's excellent design. I think this card is one of the best designed reworks they've done in a long time. And it's a really cool card. The only downsides to it, like I said, are you really need to take advantage of that order, or else you're really wasting provisions. If you're just using this to make an extra illusionist, for example, then boosting by 2, that's not worth it. Because you're losing too much value when you're doing that. But if you make a deck that plays around with this and you get a bunch of boosts, it's definitely worth it. In a lot of ways, it's similar to... Where is Bone Talisman? It's in a lot of ways it's similar to Bone Talisman. Right? Boost allied units by 1. That's basically what you're doing if you're not getting barricade synergy. And this card does see play. The only difference is it has to be a soldier, so this can't be in like a Rakaswarm or something. But the actual best example is going to be Voimir here. It does the same effect. People play Voimir and stuff like Blue Stripes Commandos, so it has a good effect. It's essentially giving you the Voimir effect neutral, and then paying 4 provisions to spawn a copy of a bronze soldier from your deck. That's very much worth it. So I do think it's good, but again, it has the same weaknesses Voimir does. If you end up in a short round 3 and you play Voimir for like 7, that's really bad. Garrison's even worse with that, but at least you have the option of doing the carryover and just playing it early and getting out at whatever you need. So overall, I think Garrison's a really good rework. I think it's a really good card, and it's really flexible. You can use it in a bunch of different decks, as I have been over the past few days or so. So, really enjoyed this one. Hopefully you guys have fun with Garrison as well. Hopefully you have a good opinion of its rework too. If you think I'm wrong on anything, or if you have any uses I didn't mention, please let me know. It's great to have these discussions, and we'll see you guys in the next one.